Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, 1 minute at a time. In this, our 6th season, we are looking at the Avengers. I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Reel Film Podcast.
And I'm Pete Wright, and this week, Captain America casually orders the assassination of an Avenger.
Today we're talking about minute 128, which begins with the fall of Tony and ends with concern for their fallen friend. Back on the show, we just had him last week, Sword Boy himself, Robin Burdge.
Hi, thanks for having me back. Again, I could say this before every single minute that I've guested. I can't believe this minute wasn't taken.
Well, okay, so what specifically drew you to picking this minute? The big fall?
Yeah, the big fall, the ball, and the big Hulk rescue. Just the suspense of this whole thing. Like, holy cow, are we going to lose Tony Stark? You know, maybe just for one movie or something.
Well, and that's, yeah, right. I suppose that's an interesting thing that is complex in the realities of making these movies. The fact that information that Iron Man 3 was the next film that was already out there kind of ruins some of your suspense that he could actually die. They might actually kill Iron Man in this film, right? Like, did you feel that when you were watching this? Do you remember?
I mean, I know it was very suspenseful that when the portal closes, you're kind of like, what happened? What happened? And, you know, Iron Man 3 could be like a Wakanda Forever or something, you know, like Rhodey could take over and, or
there was a period in the comics where he wasn't wearing the Iron Man suit. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was the thing. That's the thing that I kind of come back to is just like the perils of the schedule that they have with these movies. And I did note that it was that we already were going to get Tony again, and Cap's casual aside that they should just close the portal. I mean, clearly Cap's the menace in this movie at this point.
I don't know. I think perhaps maybe he bears a grudge for Howard Stark leaving him under the ice those many years ago. Like, I'll take the Tesseract and leave the captain.
Yeah, vengeance must be paid.
Yeah. The Civil War, maybe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe. There is this element, though. We had this conversation earlier on the helicarrier when this was after Fury had kind of pitched to these two, to Steve and Tony, about joining the team and stopping this and all this sort of stuff, kind of at the low point for all of our characters. And then Tony goes to the holding cell area, and Steve joins him there, and they have this conversation. Steve's like, "Have you ever lost a soldier?" And of course, that's when Tony's like, "We're not soldiers," that whole angle. But still, it's this idea of in a military operation, which ostensibly this is. I know we're not really calling this part of the military, but essentially that's what they are here. This is this point where you have this captain who everybody has kind of acknowledged, you're going to lead us. Even Tony came in and said, all right, what's the call? And this is this hard decision that I suppose any military leader is going to have to acknowledge they have to make at some point of when do you take an action that leaves people behind for the greater good, you know?
Mm-hmm. For the greater good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my question really is why? Like, I'm watching this part and we hear a classic Nolan Brahm noise happen. We see some sort of light shining through the portal. Is it a ship? Is it a sun? Or what makes Steve go, yeah, let's close it? Like, there's no like oncoming threat. I don't see like a bunch of ships sitting there heading towards the portal. I don't see anything.
I would assume that it's this, it's the ticking clock that they've had with this missile, because it's a nuclear missile, and pushing it through the portal as Tony did, he got it out the other side. And I don't know, my assumption is that the fact that you're seeing this glowing light from the other side is acknowledgement that it did detonate over on the other side, that there's something over there. So there's a nuclear blast.
Have to close it.
Yeah, so they're going to have to close this, or the blast from that nuclear explosion is going to rip through the hole. Now, a tiny hole worth, I don't know how much radiation that's actually going to create. I'm not exactly in the scope of things. I've never seen that in an analysis of damage from the nuclear blast. Like, what is it going to do?
The ozone layer, too.
If it's coming through a 50-foot hole, how much radiation will actually, how many people are affected here?
Yeah. How much radiation is carried in a lens flare?
Yeah.
That's you know what? You just brought up a really interesting question, though, Andy, because, and I don't think you intended to, how big is this hole? How wide is the hole over the Earth? It's got to be more than 50 feet. I feel like that was...
Well, yeah.
You were just tossing it off. But have we ever figured out how big this one-sided hole is?
I mean, the Leviathan come through, they are about... They're a little less than a block's width, which is a couple... 100 feet or so. I haven't measured a block recently, but and in New York City, I'm not exactly sure how wide those streets are there, but not super wide. Still, as those Leviathan fly through, they'll hit the windows sometimes, but not always. And so I think it's one of those things where that hole can fit a Leviathan, so it's that wide, maybe a little wider, because there is that point when Thor is blasting it with the lightning where there are two Leviathan kind of squeezing through together, and he pushes them back. So, I don't know, maybe a couple 100 feet at its maximum?
The standard block in Manhattan is 264 feet by 900 feet. They're oblong blocks, the standard Manhattan block.
So say it's 300 feet for the hole. So it's probably, somewhere in that 300-foot radius.
Yeah, and if there are like 3 Chitauri ships coming through and the hole's not big enough, does the hole then stretch to allow...
Oh, it's like there's some sort of elasticity to the hole.
Yeah.
You might think.
Well, that's interesting because there's...
I don't think so. I don't know.
There's nothing... That's a really interesting question. There's nothing... there's not a ledge, right? So on one side it's space, on the other side it's sky. Yeah. And so if a person is going through space and they hit the edge of the hole, what happens is
they bounce and then roll.
Yeah, does it create
a curb?
Is it like a blue glow? Is there an actual ledge they could actually kind of hit if they were,
or does half a body fall through to Earth, and the other half fall through space? It's like a laser
edge. Oh,
yeah, laser edge.
And there's got to be some sort of field or something, because it's not like the Earth is decompressing as a result of space being opened up in the sky right above it.
Yeah, we've talked about it kind of being almost like a film or something that they seem to... It's not like they have to push to get through it at all, but it is one of these things where it just kind of they just kind of go through as needed. There's nothing preventing them from making it through. It's not a force field, that they have to fight their way through.
Well, that's just something else that's interesting. I always imagine that there's going to be some sort of current that they're fighting against, because, there's a beam of something firing directly in their faces to open this thing. It feels shouldn't there be some sort of restraint pushing back against them?
My sense of the beam is that it's a hollow beam. The way that it seemed is it hits and it opens, but then it kind of widens. And so, I guess technically they would be flying into the center of the beam on the Earth side, and then they'd have to fly through the blue energy to get out, which is obviously something that's never really dealt with, the fact that everybody has to get through the blue energy at some point. Right.
That feels like that's an open question. If that blue energy seemed to be a pretty serious thing when it was still in the NASA bunker, it's 300 years ago when we started this podcast, and now it feels like it's okay to chill out and swim into the middle of, if you're a Leviathan, for example, which is absolutely going to be impacted by the oncoming flow of energy beam.
Or Tony carrying a missile. He has to get through that too.
Or Tony carrying a missile, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, did Tony get an assist going out the hole because of the beam? Was he propelled?
Oh, sure. Yeah, right.
That's a good question. He just ride the wave.
Yeah.
It's obviously not dealt with in any way, but it is an interesting point for sure. Speaking of propulsion and stuff, obviously we're lucky that Tony had those shoulder, it looked like the missile containment units on his shoulders that he used to blast him to kind of knock him back toward that hole and aim him toward the hole conveniently, since he passes out here and can't do it himself. Mm-hmm. But also, having, been schooled on nuclear explosions from all of those test films that you see where it like blasts incredibly fast as it like rips houses and palm trees and everything into just pieces. I wonder if the Chitauri mothership that blows up, if that explosion of the nuclear blast is actually going too slow. I feel like by the time that it blew up, it would have obliterated Tony and already been through the hole before they even had a thought to start closing this thing. That's
a good question. There might be some space physics that I don't understand to be able to address that. Also, though, it is a discussion of the raw distance. Like, is there any like accounting for the fact that ship that the missile runs into is actually still very far away from where Tony lets it go at the mouth of the hole? Yeah. I mean, we never are close to it. We never know exactly how far the distance is from the Chitauri mothership to the hole itself. No, we never really do. But wait a minute, back to the elasticity of the hole question. Was there an expectation that Chitauri mothership would eventually come through the hole? I don't think so. It didn't seem to be moving. It just seemed to be sending ships and Leviathan through and then controlling them all through its whatever hive mind control that it has. Yeah. All right. Just a server farm. Basically. It doesn't look like an attack ship. No, it doesn't. But it's one of those things. Like when you stage an invasion, there's always, you send the troops first and you prepare the place, and then you send the mothership with like schools and, other services. Schools, the Chitauri schools for all the children. Oh man, how many civilians were on that ship? Right. Yeah, this is a second Death Star scenario, isn't it? Oh no! Yes, absolutely. Which we've long held that this is actually an advocacy story to save the Leviathans, and now it's actually to save the entire Chitauri people. Yeah, they're all. Where else are they going to be? They had that like place where the other one or whatever was living on. The other, yeah. That didn't look very hospitable. He just hops from moon rock to moon rock, each floating in space. That's all he does. I mean, to your point though, Pete, it does eventually, say for example, the Avengers weren't here and Loki and the Chitauri were able to take over Earth. It does make sense that eventually they would start wanting to get bigger ships and bigger ships and bigger ships through that space hole so that they could fully inhabit this planet and take over. Yeah, that's the way V did it. That's the way Independence Day did it. Like, you just eventually the big ships come. Yeah, so I guess maybe somebody would come through. Either Eric, if he had still been programmed, would be able to continue expanding the hole, or some Chitauri scientists would come through. That sounds silly when you say Chitauri scientists, but whatever. Wow, that's very specious of you. That's hard when you've only seen the fighters. But yes, I imagine there are some really smart Chitauri out there. Lab coats. Scientists, the Chitauri academics. Yeah. I like that I want to think they talk like Tony Randall in Gremlins too. You like that same. Oh man. So, all right, but it is a decision that they make to shut this the space hole because the nuclear blast is slowly moving toward them, and Nat makes quite the face as she jabs the scepter into the Tesseract energy to trigger this fail-safe that Eric had built into it and cause the collapse of the hole, and and that's kind of the end of this. The weirdest thing that I think is as we see Tony falling toward it as it's closing, right toward the end, as it is about to close up, it suddenly looks like he gets sucked out quicker. And that, to your point, Robin, or to your question about, like, is there some sort of, like, propulsion or some sort of pull as, like, the atmosphere and whatnot, it seems like he really kind of gets sucked through at the last minute, which I thought was kind of strange. Did the Earth's gravity takes over? Maybe? Is that what it is? But then, you guys, there's also this like flaming miasma of just stuff that he's falling through as it closes, right? Like, what is that all about? I have no idea what that. All this, and I didn't even know it was him falling through. It just suddenly we're looking at fire and sparks. Yeah, and then not blue.
blue cloudy skies.
Like,
Yeah,
I would
not
have
blue.
expected, because the hole was all blue, the edge of the hole was blue, we would be falling through some sort of blue wave if there's going to be some sort of wave. But it actually gives the hole itself, like, depth that I didn't expect. I thought it was just flat, but it feels like it closes around Tony while he's in this sort of nether space between outer space and Earth space.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something funky there. And then you do see the nuclear blast wave hit. It's an interesting shot because we're looking at the hole and the blue energy, and then suddenly it's gone and it's space, and then we're in the wake of the nuclear explosion. So you can see how close it was actually behind him, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. So maybe that's what we're talking about. Like the wave that hits, the blue closes, and it's the... Oh, okay. So the orange is the nuclear stuff.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. Yeah, and you can see it coming. Like when we're looking up toward the one-sided hole around 23 seconds, it's glowing orange because that's the nuclear wave coming
Yeah, I
toward
see
it.
it now.
Yeah.
Man, that is a sphincter. I can't see anything
The
else.
first of our many sphincters that we'll end up having in this franchise. Okay, 2. But sounds funny when you say many.
It's a wonderful starfish.
Wow.
Yeah, so Nat is the one that has to destroy the portal. And I was wondering, like, towards the beginning of this minute, she looks up and she says, "Come on, Stark." Like, and I'm like, aren't they on first name basis at this point? Like,
Not when they're in uniform.
not
When they're in uniform that's official last name basis.
Why does she just say, "Come on, Iron Man"?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That just
right.
sounds silly, right?
I'd love, like, once they put their suits on, I'd love that they're just always constantly calling each other their hero name, even though everyone knows
Calling
that's
me
Tony's.
Steve. I told you, like, Captain America.
Come on.
I'm wearing the duds.
I'm on stage. Like he would talk like a Disney employee. Like, you know, once you've got your outfit on, you're on stage and everybody is your audience.
Meanwhile, Thor is like, I don't know what these guys are arguing about.
These people. Right.
Thor is Thor.
Right.
This isn't costume. These are my Monday pants.
So Tony falls, and, you know, everybody's excited to see him falling. But of course, they very quickly realize that he's not falling in a controlled way. They realize that he's not slowing down, aka he's unconscious and likely going to crash into something. And so Thor, I like that he's kind of the first one to, you know, try putting a plan into action to go save him. He starts swinging Mjolnir around, but then it's Hulk who surprises us all, jumping and grabbing him and, you know, hitting the building as he falls and then tossing himself to a car to save Tony's life.
So heroic.
It plays well. What do you think of this beat?
Well, this is why Robin showed up.
Yeah. Robin, what do you think?
Well, I thought it was funny. I was trying to think of like how much spin does Thor need to get to flying, and how irritating has that got to be to not just be able to take right off and save somebody. He's like, hold on, I'm going to spin the thing, and then finally let the hammer pull you away. He's like going to do this as a guy in a metal suit is falling from the sky. Like, how much time does he really have to swing that thing? So I'm glad that the Hulk, you know, surprisingly jumps from out of nowhere to save him. And another great. I mean, it's almost like a Dom and Letty grab from what was that, Fast 6, I think.
Oh, where they're swinging
Where
around over the cars.
Where she goes flying out of one car and he jumps out of the other car and they catch each other in midair, and she lands with him on the hood of the car, you know. But this one is like, you know, it's they hit the car and they just keep going, skidding across the ground. But yeah, it's all very exciting.
It's a great moment, and you know, just in the scope again of like always like newly contextualizing the position of where everybody is. It's nice to see, like, as Tony is falling there, you can see the smoke from the building that he's about to hit, and the corner. That's where Hawkeye jumped from. You can see the smoldering crumbles of the roof there, where he had kind of like avoided the explosions from the Chitauri, and somewhere one of these windows is what he had actually crashed through as he'd come down. And so it's just nice kind of contextualizing all of this and going, oh, okay, yeah, and figuring out that it's all kind of just all the same neighborhood.
Yeah, it's all in the right place.
Like Tony's going to just have to rebuild basically that entire building.
Well, the entire 3-block radius is
pretty much
having a rough day.
Yeah, Tony's like, oh man, well, you should have seen the bill Superman got. Anyway.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But this is the big save, and it's a great moment from Hulk. I love the way once Hulk does it, like he comes crashing down, landing on that car, taking it out. And then he just kind of like casually tosses Tony to the side.
Onto his face.
Over to the side, yeah.
Something about that.
It's pretty good.
We're so used to Hulk, the Beast, and that he finally takes an order from Captain America before this whole fight starts. So I think it's kind of cool that, there's, Bruce is somewhere in there being like, oh my God, my science bro, I got to go catch him.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So there's a connection there that, of course, Hulk is going to save him.
I do like that quite a bit, that there's something about him that he had to, he recognized that he had to do the heroic thing. Because, I mean, Hulk smash, that is totally like the sort of order he's given earlier that makes a lot of sense to him. Oh, okay, bad guys up there, I'm going to go smash them and stuff. But now this idea of actually thinking enough to be heroic and actually save one of these comrades, I think that there is something likely very powerful in his head that triggered his response to do that plays really nicely, really does. And at the end, when it's Thor, Captain America come running up to look at him, and Hulk is just kind of like, I don't know, there's something funny about the way that Hulk's face just kind of is looking at Tony as he's like growling at him, but also really curious. He's almost like a puppy dog that just rescued a little animal.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, is it alive? Like,
yeah. What do I do now?
Yeah.
Is there a treat involved? Should I get a treat for this?
My favorite part is Thor running over, and you could really see the constraints of that costume. He looks like a linebacker is just trying to work his way. He's now I got to kneel down and not have the thing go up over my face. That costume gets better.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it has been a great minute. Any last thoughts about this or anything else about the film that you want to say, since this is your last time with us, Robin?
Oh, I can't believe it, Robin.
I know.
Well, I'm so happy to be able to not just do a week of minutes, but to be kind of scattered around the movie and just pick up all the good parts. Am I the only one that Googled son of a gun to see where it comes from?
Oh, apparently you are. Yeah, son of a gun, caps line. Right.
Steve says, son of a gun. And, of course, it's a euphemism for son of a bee, more of affectionate, way or more. But I saw on Wikipedia that this phrase potentially has its origin in Royal Navy, that pregnant women aboard smaller naval vessels give birth in the space between the broadside guns in order to keep the gangways and the crew decks clear. So if you're a son of a gun, you're somebody who got born on a ship between a couple of large guns, I guess.
That's amazing. I had no idea.
And this was according to the Sailor's Word Book from 1867. It had something to do with the fact that sailors used to be able to bring their ladies onto the ship, and they just ride with them, on adventures and have babies, I guess.
So civilized.
Yeah.
That's actually what the Chitauri are doing too. Entire families are on that ship.
What's their use of euphemism that they use when they were born in the streets of New York or during the battle?
Son of a pew.
Yeah, that might be it. That might be it.
Right.
No, but I don't know. I'll always love the Avengers. It's a great movie, and after seeing The Flash, I'm just like, wow, how far we've come. And not. Thanks for having me on.
We are thrilled to have had all these conversations with you. Lots of fun. Thanks so much for joining us over the course of the movie. I'm glad that you were able to pick some really good minutes.
Yeah.
Tell everybody again about the podcasts that you're doing and those that you have out there for people to check out, the ones that are finished.
Son of a sword boy? Son of a sword?
Son of a sword.
Is that what we're calling it now?
Yes, a boy that is born between two swords. It's just known as a cool guy. Or Sword Boy. Sword Boys is a podcast I do with my friends, and we're covering like 80s mostly swords and sorcery and swashbuckling movies. We've already covered Highlander by now, and we are currently working our way through 1982's classic, The Beastmaster, where, some beasts are beasts and some beasts are beasts that he can't control. There's lots of discussion about beasts and the controlling of beasts and their will, and Tanya Roberts, mostly Tanya Roberts we talk about.
That makes sense.
If you want some minute-by-minute stuff, I was recently involved in the Karate Kid Minute as well as Fright Night Minute, so I've got those out there as well.
Well, we'll have the links for those and Robin's other shows in our show notes, so check those out. If you're not seeing them in your podcatcher, just go to our website, marvelmovieminute.com. You can check everything out there. Meanwhile, we'll be back tomorrow to talk about minute 129. So, Pete, thanks as always.
It's so weird, Andy. Tomorrow, I don't think any of the Avengers actually know CPR.
Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Message to the World by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.